What's up guys, my name is Achilles and I'm one of the sourdough bros. Today I'm going to be showing you guys how I make my signature premium organic artisan loaf. So the first thing we got to do, now this is going to greatly benefit the texture and the crumb. It's going to make it softer. It's going to make it easier for the yeast to get active. We're going to be doing our Autolyse. It's just going to be the mix of our water and our flour. So we're going to get our scale. We're going to set our bowl on it. You're going to want to make sure you zero out your scale. Now, just so you don't mess up, I would recommend you weigh your water in a different container so you don't overhydrate. Alright, so we're going to be weighing out 350 grams of water. So we're going to be using our reverse osmosis water stored in glass. Now, towards the end of your pouring, you want to go slow because the grams for water seems to go up faster than flour. Now we're just going to add this in. So next, we're going to add 500 grams of flour. This is organic flour and we store it in glass. We're going to slowly add in our scoops until we get to 500 grams. Okay, a little bit more. So now we're just going to mix this with our hands. You're going to want to get something to scrape your hands off with. So we're going to be using a spoon because we don't use plastic scrapers. Now when you're doing your Autolyse, so you're just going to want to squish everything in with your hands so there's no dry clumps. You'll realize after letting your water and flour do the Autolyse, it's going to be a lot more smoother. So the best method for doing your mixing is use one hand to assist, how I'm doing, just moving the bowl, and then the other one to mix and squish. You're going to want to scrape the sides of the bowl with your hand, just to make sure there's no dry clumps, there's no extra flour, there's no dough on the sides, and the bottom. You're going to want a big enough bowl because you're going to have to do coil folds, and it's going to be hard to do if your bowl is too narrow. So this is pretty good. There's no more dry clumps. So now we're just going to take our spoon and scrape this off our hands. So I'm going to go wash this off, clean our area up, and wash my hands. Then we're going to set a 30-minute timer, and we'll be back for the next step. Alright, so we're going to add in our salt. Now you're going to have to weigh this out. Right now I already pre-weighed this out. We have 10 grams. Now you want to be precise when you're measuring your salt because you don't want to go over because it's going to slow down fermentation too much. And if you don't add enough salt, your bread's not really going to be too good. It's not going to taste... I mean, like, you'll still have your sour taste, but the salt really enhances the flavor. It also helps slow down fermentation so it doesn't end up over fermenting. Now we're going to add in 100 grams of our stiff starter. Now, between your stretch and folds or coil folds, you're going to be waiting 30 minutes. Now, I'm only saying that because I'm in Florida. Usually you would go for an hour, but just watch your dough depending on your climate. In Florida, it's more warm and humid, so it's going to take less time to ferment. I'm going to want 100 grams. Okay, that is a little over. We have our 100 grams of starter. Now we're going to use our clean hands to mix everything together. Again, you're going to want to be doing the same squishing motion. You want to make sure all the salt is incorporated. You'll notice your dough is a lot more smoother after the Autolyse. When you're making sourdough, you're going to want to use fine sea salt, but if you don't have fine sea salt, you can basically just use a mortar to ground it down. You don't want big chunks of salt that are unmixed into the dough. So once all your dough is coming together, we're going to use our spoon and scrape this off our hands. Now this dough is going to stick together a lot more easier than the first mix. So as you'll notice that this is all going to come off my hand a lot easier. Or more all together, I guess you could say. Alright, so that's most of it. Now we're just going to take this to the sink and I'm going to wash my hands. We're going to be setting a 30-minute timer, then we're going to come and do our lamination. Alright, so it's been 30 minutes. Now we're going to be doing our lamination. So the timer just went off. We're going to be getting our hands wet before we touch the dough. This is just going to help make sure it doesn't stick to your hands. Now when you're doing the lamination, you want to stretch it out as thinly as you can without ripping it. Don't want to tear your dough, it's going to mess up the structure. Don't want to put anything on your surface because you want some of that tension so you can actually be able to pull. If you put flour on your surface, you're not going to be able to fold it right and you're not going to be able to get any grip. So just stick with wet hands for now. As you can tell, after that 30 minutes, your dough is a lot more smoother. So with the Autolyse and with the fermentation, your dough is going to be easier to work with. And it's going to be healthier on your gut too. The Autolyse, basically what it does is it activates enzymes and then it starts breaking down the starches before the yeast and bacteria get to it. Makes their job easier. Once it starts sticking to your hands, just dip your hands in the water again, rub them together. You want to stretch very slowly, because again, you don't want to tear your dough. Now if you wanted to make the folding part easier, you can use a wet dough scraper, but I find it helpful to just use my hands. As you can see right here, it's getting very thin, so we're not going to stretch this side anymore. But you don't want to tear it. You want to get it as thin as possible. This is going to give it a lot of internal structure. So this is a very beneficial step. You don't want to skip this step because you want the good structure. You want a nice soft crumb. Alright, hold up. Let me stretch these corners out. You can tell they're really thick. We're gonna do our wet hands one more time. Now we're just gonna take this side, fold it to the middle, this side, fold it to the middle. Just wanna get under the dough like this. And just gently pull it up. Just plop it down. Take this side, do the same thing. We're gonna take this, bring it in like this, and then we're gonna just start rolling this way. This is gonna, basically what we just did is created a bunch of pockets of air, which is gonna let the yeast blow those pockets up like balloons basically on the inside. So now we're just gonna take this and we're gonna round it. So this is another part why you don't want flour on your table, because it's gonna create less tension. Take this, tuck this under, and then pull. Most people just call this the tuck and pull method. That's basically all you're doing. You might see some bubbles popping out, just like this one. We're just gonna leave that. So now we're just gonna plop this back in our bowl. Then I'm gonna clean this area up. We're just gonna let it rest for another 30 minutes, then we're gonna do some coil folds. Now for drier doughs, you can do stretch and folds, but when it's a higher hydration in Florida, it's definitely better just to do coil folds. You don't want to rip your dough and destroy the internal structure. Alright guys, so while we were doing the lamination, as you can see, we might have added a little too much water. Yeah. So we're gonna move on to our coil folds. We're gonna try to fix that. We're not gonna add any more moisture to this. So you wanna get under your dough like this. We're gonna pull this up. I'm gonna pull away quickly so it doesn't stick to your fingers. Now we're gonna let this rest for another 30 minutes, and then we're gonna do the same thing. Now we're not gonna be adding any more water because we want this to dry out and lose some moisture, as right now it is too wet. Alright, so we're gonna do our next round of coil folds now. Okay, we got some nice bubbles. The dough's not as sticky anymore, and it didn't lose as much of its shape as it did the first time. So since we didn't use water last time, we're just gonna do this again. Another coil fold without water. Now remember, you just want to pull your hands away as quick as you can so it doesn't stick. Okay, hold up. This is going to build gluten and tension. So as you can tell, it's not really sticky anymore. We're gonna let this rest for another 30 minutes. And then we're gonna do our last two coil folds. And all right, now we're gonna do our third round of coil folds. So right now you can really start smelling the fermentation. We have some volume now, and the dough is not as sticky, so we're going to do the same thing. You don't want to reach under, pull up. Then this right here, this longer part, we're just gonna get that under there. Now we're just gonna let this rest for 30 minutes. Then we're gonna do our last coil fold. Alright, so now we're gonna do our last coil fold. So the dough is a lot bigger now. It's not as sticky anymore. Just gonna get our hands under there. We're just gonna let this rest for 30 minutes and then we're gonna do our pre-shaping. So our dough's lost some of its shape. We're just gonna perform one more set of coil folds. We're just gonna let this one rest for about 20 minutes and then we're gonna get to the pre-shaping. Alright, now we're gonna be doing our pre-shaping. You're gonna wanna plop your dough out onto your surface. Alright. We're gonna let this rest for 30 minutes and then we're gonna do our shaping and put it in the banneton. Alright, so our pre-shaping is done. We're just gonna uncover this. Now what we're gonna do, I'm gonna stretch this out. So we're just gonna do a light dusting on top of this. Just like that. Then we're gonna flip this over so the floured side is on the bottom. And stretch this just like this. Now we're gonna dust our banneton with cornmeal.